Adding beauty is not the only role these water bodies play. They actually provide us with increased water levels during the dry season and vegetation for the fauna. We have two ponds in Tathastu. In Hindi, we also call them talab or talao. The Bada Talao is the main reservoir. That's where we hold most of our water. However, we were in need of a mini reservoir in order to drain the excess water from the Bada Talao. That's how the Chota Talao comes in place. This is a beautiful place to be in, really serene. And we're going to spend most of our day today just about here. Like any other place which facilitates life, Chota Talao too has its set of biotic and abiotic factors which builds a community. This community can be called an ecosystem. The biotic factors are the living organisms, the fishes, the amphibians, the flora which we see here, any form of bacteria, etc. And the abiotic factors would consist of the sunlight, the soil, the weather, the water, any form of physical or chemical factor which helps the biotic factors to survive. What we need to take a note of is that these living or biotic factors are the producers, the consumers, and decomposers. There is a food chain that they are there to. These ponds play a very important role in the ecosystem. They are home to many species. They also are entities which supports biodiversity. All these living factors together dwell in this pond, and hence it is their habitat. Every pond has a story to narrate, and Chota Talab is no exception. We've conceived it with proper planning and purpose. We wanted it to germinate its own personality, and without a second thought, we planted lotus seeds in it. Because we know that lotuses have some connection with the generator of life, which is the sun. Also, it grows faster and better in hot temperate areas, also in warmer seasons, which is most of the time Pench Tiger Reserve, rather than winters or colder areas. This is a lotus bud. This is what it looks like from really close. I, when we were sort of picking the buds and the flowers and the leaves, we saw this silk secretion. In certain cultures, this silk secretion is actually utilized uh, for creating multiple clothing factors, and it's believed to be a really um, sacred art form, which is which produces different things. But anyway, this is the bud. We saw the silk secretion. This is a lotus which has sort of finished its 3 day flowering period, and the leaves are gradually falling off, like we can see here. And this is what the inside. Oops. This is what the inside looks like. So this yellow bit, it's a young seed pod. It is going to mature. It's going to look green. This is what it's going to look like I have one more example of a freshly picked seed pod. It's amazing how these plants have a very protective way of, it's a little difficult to tear it off, but there you go. This is a lotus seed. What will happen over the period of time is this pod is going to dry off, and so is the outer cover of the seed. This is consumed in our culture. The seed inside can be eaten even at this stage. While we were just loitering around, we could find a dried pod and yeah, a seed too. This seed can stay like this for years and blossom when it's the right time for it to blossom. And we also happen to have a leaf which we picked, which is absolutely water repellent from the top. And this is how it looks like from the bottom. It's a really aged leaf, which you can see from the size of the leaf, and it's sort of starting to decompose from the bottom. So the fresh leaves which you otherwise see will still be intact, will still be fairly green, like the one which you see from the top. Um, Lotus being an aquatic plant, the stem of the lotus, yeah, you can probably refer to this one. The stem of the lotus, sure if again, the problem is I'm not able to, yeah. So if you could see the stem of the lotus, it's hollow from inside, but equally tough on the outside. And it continuously provides nutrients from the water below to the leaves and to the seed pods atop to the actual bud. Leaves of the lotus grow broader because they are light and hollow, they stay afloat, which then becomes a platform for multiple birds to sort of step on and forage while they are in the pond. Beautiful. The easiest way to measure the depth of the water usually is by using a dry branch of a tree. The depth of the pond is still up to 3 to 4 feet. Surprising, it's holding so much water despite it being in peak summers. We are in the end of May here in Pench Reserve. This must be a site of relief for a lot of birds and mammals because they could easily reach here and get some water to drink. What we can also see is that the seed pods that of the lotus, which have finished blooming, have become mature, are sort of going to dry in some time and release the seeds back into the same pond, which are eventually going to start growing. What you can see now is the footage that we shot in the past when the entire pond was blossomed with lotuses. Lotuses can be a nutritional food for humans too. Each part of this plant has a health benefit and has been traditionally used over centuries for its medicinal properties. Various delicacies are made from it. For example, in central and northern India, makhana is very famous. That's made from lotus seeds. Lotus not only added aesthetics but also garnered so much life here. Their little fragrance attracts insects and birds for its nectar, who are excellent pollinators. Over time, decomposition of these plants gave rise to so many microorganisms and worms, which then attracted more fauna like the aquatic birds, toads, frogs, and insects. And flora, like different types of weeds and straws, started growing on the shore. That became the nesting ground for water hens and ducks. Stay tuned for the next part of this episode, The Habitat. We have some interesting footage to show you of the inhabitants of Chota Talao. This footage would have birds nesting, trying to raise their offsprings. We have multiple amphibians which we're going to show you, and it's going to be an interesting one. Until then, stay safe. I, Rishabh Kansara, I'm going to see you in the next episode of The Habitat.